They said I let them down. They didn't scream it. There were no slammed doors, no family interventions. Just the silence, the slow retreat. Like I had stepped off stage in the middle of a play, and no one thought to call me back. At my brother's engagement dinner, I sat near the end of the table where the extra chair met the wall. My dress brushed against a baseboard heater that never turned on. The candlelight didn't quite reach me. No one noticed when I arrived. I wasn't surprised. They hadn't noticed when I left the residency program either, or when I moved out, or when I stopped answering questions with anything more than "I'm fine." The roast chicken was overcooked, the napkins were pressed, my mother's earrings sparkled in that practiced way. David, my brother, stood tall, surrounded by laughter that didn't need me. I cut my vegetables. I nodded when someone glanced my way. I was never impolite, just absent in plain sight. Then somewhere between the wine and the dessert, Hannah, David's fiancée, turned toward me and narrowed her eyes. "Wait," she said slowly. "You're Claire Monroe." And in that moment, the room began to listen. I was supposed to be the one who made them proud. Claire Monroe, firstborn, straight A's, future surgeon, the one who skipped prom for biology finals and still smiled in the family photos. People used to say I was going places. Turns out no one asked where those places might lead once the lights went out. I made it through undergrad with a clinical kind of discipline, top of my class. First, to get into a competitive residency. I remember the day I opened the acceptance email, my dad clapped me on the back the way men do when they don't know how to say "I love you," and my mother called everyone she knew. They thought it was the beginning of something golden. But behind the scrubs and long shifts, something hollow had started to grow. It wasn't the patience. It wasn't the pressure. It was the silence I came home to. The endless need to smile, to perform, to keep up with the narrative they'd already written for me. The day I left the program, I didn't pack in anger. I just folded my white coat, placed it in the back of my closet, and sat on the floor for hours. No one noticed. When I told them I was stepping away, the phone line went quiet. My mother whispered, "So, what now?" And I had no answer. I moved out of my apartment into a tiny studio above a flower shop in Portland. No elevators, no framed degrees on the wall. Just the sound of rain hitting the window panes and a kettle that never boiled quite fast enough. They didn't ask where I'd gone. They told the story for me. She needed time. She's figuring things out. She gave up medicine, such a shame. At Thanksgiving, my aunt brought up David's promotion twice. No one mentioned my name. I brought dessert. No one ate it. I started writing again, not fiction, not blogs, just thoughts. Little phrases like, "What if your life's value isn't in what you continue, but what you dare to leave?" I knew they wouldn't understand that. They didn't see the version of me who walked 10 blocks every morning to teach seniors how to use a tablet, or the one who taught a woman named Loretta to join a Zoom call so she could watch her granddaughter graduate from nursing school, the same dream I walked away from. But maybe it wasn't failure. Maybe it was the first time I chose my voice over their applause. At first, it felt like drifting. I'd wake up with no shift to report to no patient charts, no scrub room chatter. Just the hum of early buses down Hawthorne Avenue and the floral scent that crept up through the floorboards from the shop below. I started volunteering at the local library mostly to feel useful. They had a weekly tech help session, seniors trying to understand the basics of email passwords, social media, the kind of things my generation takes for granted. The first time I showed Mrs. Denning how to unlock her iPad, she cried. "I thought this thing hated me," she said. But maybe it just needed a little kindness. That moment stayed with me. There was something sacred about helping someone feel less afraid of a world that had moved on without asking their permission. Soon, I began organizing structured sessions. Small groups printed guides in large fonts, simple language. Then came Brightbridge. Not a company, not yet. Just a name on a folder on my desktop. A bridge between generations. A place to feel seen again. I used my savings to build a basic website. I bought a voice-enabled plugin for accessibility. I recorded videos from my kitchen table with a borrowed mic and a $20 ring light. It was clunky, but it worked. Within 6 months, I had more signups than I could handle alone. Veterans, grandmothers, Isolated men who hadn't spoken to their children in years. They called in eager, awkward, full of hope. At night, I'd read their messages like prayers. I used FaceTime today for the first time. I saw my son's baby. Thank you. I sent my first email without asking my neighbor. I don't feel stupid anymore. Brightbridge was never supposed to be my redemption. It just became my way back into the world, one person at a time. Meanwhile, back at home, the silence grew louder. My parents never asked how things were going. They assumed I was doing a little tutoring, maybe working for a nonprofit. My mother called it Claire's little project once over dinner with a smile that stung sharper than a slap. I didn't correct her. I'd learned something: when someone hands you a label, failure, disappointment, burden, you don't fight to change their mind. You build something too undeniable to be ignored, and when they still don't ask, you keep building. On my desk sat a wooden USB drive carved from cherry wood, a gift from one of my earliest students. Inside it, the first version of Brightbridge, every update, every testimonial, a timeline of something real. I carried it with me everywhere, not to prove a point, just in case someone someday finally asked the right question. It was a Tuesday when the email arrived. Subject line, stories that connect. Video submission from H. Carlisle. I clicked it without thinking. Every few days, Brightbridge received stories from users or their families, small thank yous, short clips, sometimes just a sentence or two about what the platform had done for them. This one opened with a young woman sitting beside an older lady on a floral couch. The younger one had soft eyes, a steady voice. "This is my grandmother Ruth. She lost her husband last spring and it's been hard. But thanks to Brightbridge, she was able to video call us every Sunday. She even learned how to use the online grocery app." My breath slowed. The woman on screen smiled at her granddaughter, then turned toward the camera. "Thank you, Brightbridge. Thank you, Claire. You helped me feel human again." The granddaughter leaned into her shoulder. "We're so grateful." I watched it again and again. Then I saw the name Hannah Carlisle, Hannah David's fiancée. I sat back in my chair, blinking into the silence of my apartment. The only sound was the kettle clicking off behind me. She didn't know. She had no idea I was the Claire in the video. No idea the tool that helped her grandmother came from the same woman her future in-laws never talked about, never praised. She had found value in what I built without anyone telling her to, and that made it real in a way even my mother's approval never could. I saved the video to the USB drive, labeled it Recognition Without Introduction, and I didn't tell a soul. The engagement dinner was set for Saturday evening, 3 days before my mother called. Her voice was brisk, practiced the kind she used when managing events, not speaking to her daughter. "Don't forget, 600 sharp. They've reserved that new place downtown Stonecroft, I think it's called." I hesitated. "I'm not sure I should come." A pause. Too short to be surprise. Too long to be warm. "Why wouldn't you?" she said. Then, before I could answer, she added, "Just don't bring up your website thing too much. Hannah's family is very accomplished. Ivy League types." I almost laughed. "Got it," I said. "No mention of buttons." She didn't catch the sarcasm. She never does. Later that night, I opened my closet, stared at rows of sensible black slacks and gray sweaters, things that said, "I'm neutral. I won't take up space." Then I pulled out a dress I hadn't worn in years, deep forest green, sleeveless. Clean lines, 1 inch below the knee, quietly defiant. I laid it across the bed next to the wooden USB, not to make a statement, just to remember who I was when no one else seemed to. The next day, my inbox pinged again. From Mom. Subject dress guidance. Nothing too loud. No pantsuits. Something feminine, please. Attached were photo examples, women with pearls and soft hair smiling like they had nothing to prove. I didn't reply. She wasn't asking. She was directing. But I wasn't following anymore. On Friday, I met with our newest intern, a freshman named Marisol. Bright eyes full of questions about accessibility and UI design for older users. As we wrapped up, a woman at the next table leaned over. "Sorry to interrupt. Are you Claire Monroe? From Brightbridge?" I blinked. "Yes," I said, cautious. She beamed. My dad's been using your platform. He sent me a meme yesterday. I didn't even know he knew what a meme was. I smiled, really smiled for the first time that week. Maybe I wasn't invisible, just unseen by the wrong people. Stonecroft was all brass fixtures and quiet lighting, the kind of place where the butter came with sea salt and the air smelled faintly of lemon oil and money. I arrived 10 minutes early. I always do. My mother looked surprised to see me. Not pleased. Just surprised. "Oh, you came. You asked me to," I said. She gave a tight smile. Her eyes skimmed my dress, pausing for half a second too long. "It's bold." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The hostess led me to the long table in the private room. 12 seats. I was placed at the end next to the emergency exit and the extra silverware tray. Of course. I unfolded my napkin, smoothed it across my lap, poured myself water, and waited. David and Hannah arrived 15 minutes later, glowing full of ease. They made their way down the line of relatives, hugs, handshakes, laughter that had rhythm. Hannah hugged me too, lightly, politely, not knowing, not yet. Dinner began with small talk and champagne. David's boss toasted with a story about performance metrics. Hannah's father spoke about legacy and tradition like they were family heirlooms passed down in perfect condition. I nodded, smiled when it was expected, stayed invisible. Until dessert arrived, some delicate construction of chocolate and sea salt, and Hannah, seated just across from me, now turned with a curious expression. "I've been meaning to ask Claire. What do you do again?" The clinking of forks softened. The background hum thinned. I took a sip of water, steady and slow. I run a digital platform that helps older adults stay connected. Tech literacy, accessibility tools, that sort of thing. Hannah tilted her head. "Oh, like Zoom classes. More like adaptive systems built for long-term engagement. We focus on screen readers, large print voice input." She blinked. "What's it called? Brightbridge?" Then it happened. Her eyes widened, her breath caught. "No. No way. Your Brightbridge." Hannah stared at me. Her voice dropped into a hush as she leaned forward. "Wait. Your Brightbridge?" It wasn't a question. It was recognition. I gave a slight nod. No dramatics. Just the truth, finally letting itself be seen. The room didn't go quiet all at once. It settled like dust after something heavy falls. She blinked and said my full name slowly, Claire Monroe, and then mentioned the campaign, the testimonials, the face behind the platform. That was me. David looked confused. Hannah turned to him, explaining how Brightbridge had helped her grandmother, how they'd connected every Sunday through video calls, how those last months felt less lonely because of it. Her voice caught when she said, she died feeling connected, not forgotten. No one moved. My mother's hand hovered over her glass, frozen mid-reach. Someone set down a fork too loudly. The silence afterward was louder. Then Hannah said something that landed like a quiet bell ringing through the room. She gave us more time. She looked at me again and asked, not accusing, just baffled why I hadn't said anything. I told her gently that it hadn't felt like the right time. David, still processing, leaned toward me and said he never knew. I met his gaze and replied simply, "You never asked." I didn't say it to wound him, just to let it stand. A small truth finally allowed air. That's when it changed. One of David's colleagues leaned over and asked about the platform's accessibility features. Another mentioned a parent struggling with tech. Could Brightbridge help? I answered calmly. I didn't need to convince anyone. The work spoke for itself. Across the table, my aunt blinked slowly, then said almost to herself, "That's actually incredible." My father looked down at his plate. My mother, still holding her glass, hadn't spoken a word. It wasn't anger I felt. Not pride either. Just presence. The quiet satisfaction of finally being whole in a room that once preferred me broken or silent. For years, I'd sat at tables like this one invisible. But now, without ever raising my voice, the narrative had shifted. Not because I demanded it. Not because I embarrassed anyone. Just because the truth had walked in beside me and refused to sit in the corner anymore. The rest of the evening unfolded in a strange, softened light. Conversations once carefully curated began to ripple in new directions. People asked about the platform where it operated, how it started, what it had done during the pandemic. Names were exchanged, cards offered. A few even asked if I'd ever considered expanding to their states. I answered each with quiet clarity. Not selling, just sharing. Hannah stayed close by, still glowing with something between pride and disbelief. I noticed the way she looked at David, then back at me, like she was seeing the family differently now. Later, as people stood to leave, David caught up to me near the coat rack. He shifted his weight awkwardly, hands in his pockets, voice low. "I'm sorry we never asked." That was it. No speech, no qualifiers. Just a sentence left open like a door that had never quite closed. I nodded, not because it fixed anything, but because it was enough. That night, my mother didn't speak to me directly, but I saw her watching from across the room, the way her eyes lingered longer than they used to. As if recalibrating a picture she thought she'd already framed. And this time, I didn't shrink beneath it. I didn't rush to fill the silence. I didn't offer reassurance. Let her sit with it. Let them all sit with it. Because sometimes the apology isn't the twist. The twist is that I no longer need it to keep going. 2 mornings later, I found a letter in my mailbox. Real paper, real ink, the handwriting unmistakable. From my mother. No text message, no subject line, just a folded piece of heavy cream stationery with my name spelled in full across the front. Inside, her words were careful, not flowery, not rehearsed. I watched the video Hannah submitted. I cried. Not because I didn't know what you'd built, but because I realized I never once asked, she went on. I was so focused on what you stepped away from, I never saw what you were walking toward. You did something no one in this family ever dared. You failed. Then you kept going, and in doing that, you gave people something I never knew they'd lost. The feeling of being connected, of being seen. It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was something more honest. She signed it simply, "Love, Mom." No grand ending, no plea for a call, just the letter, folded once, hand-delivered. I read it 3 times, then slid it into the top drawer of my desk next to the wooden USB. I didn't frame it. I didn't reply. Because this time I didn't need to hang her words on a wall to make them real. This time I was already standing in what I'd built, and that was enough. 3 weeks later, I stood at the front of a modest community center auditorium. No stage lights, no press. Just 50 folding chairs and a pot of weak coffee on a plastic table near the back. The audience was mixed: a few retirees, a librarian or two, and a high schooler who had brought her grandfather. I told them about Brightbridge, not the numbers, not the growth. I told them about Mrs. Denning and her iPad, about the first time someone emailed me just to say I feel capable again. I told them I had once walked away from the life everyone else wanted for me and had stumbled into something better, a life I could actually recognize as mine. When the room stood to clap, I didn't cry, but I did smile. The kind that starts in your spine and works its way up, the kind you don't perform for anyone else. That night at home, I printed out a quote and taped it to my fridge. They'll say you let them down until the day they realize you were the one holding the light. No signature. No explanation. Below it, my reflection in the fridge door, steady, softened, full. Not because they finally saw me, but because I finally stopped needing them to.